Okay, we're going to start our next presentation by Jan. The title is Becoming Antifragile is More Important Than Ever in Disruptive Times. Please.
It's not working? Yeah, now it's working. Yeah, there we are. Okay, thank you for having me. Anti-fragility, that's what I'm going to talk about. How many of you are familiar with anti-fragility? 2 hands, yeah, three hands. Okay. That's not normally what I see. I hope to fix that for the rest in the next 30 minutes. A little bit about myself. I do have a little bit of a challenge with a handheld microphone because I normally do a lot of talking with my hands, so I have to keep it steady here. Little bit about myself. I'm a consultant, coach, trainer, speaker in the areas mentioned here. And I'm also involved in a couple of research initiatives. Would like to mention the middle one with you. Corporate services in agile and DevOps environments. If you are deploying DevOps, especially DevOps, in an organization, you will have a lot of heavy discussions with control and with procurement and with HR, etc. Anybody familiar with that? Yeah, because control, for instance, says, okay, you are composing a team of 8 people coming from, let's say, 4, 5, or 6 different departments. My spreadsheet says no, so I'm against this whole DevOps initiative. And then you have some trouble with control. And what we are trying to do in our research is bringing those worlds closer together, so that control better understands what's coming their way, but also that agile and DevOps people better understand what a business controller or a financial controller needs to do his or her work. Before we start talking about anti-fragility, I would like to show you this particular slide about risk and risk management. And what we see here is a report from PricewaterhouseCoopers, and they say this report is about unknown risk, coping with unknown risks. But when you read this particular text, this text is not about unknown risks. This text is about all the risks that you can come up with yourself. So they are not unknown. The real unknown risks remain unknown. So that even for a well-known consultancy firm like PricewaterhouseCoopers in this particular report. So you could actually say that we are not talking about risk management. We are actually talking about risk theater. And I did not come up with that term myself. The man who coined the term was Nassim Nicholas Taleb. And he says, it's better to become less fragile to risks than to do risk management. And that's the reason why he wrote the book Anti-Fragile, which is not only about getting to cope with fragility, to cope with risk, but even become anti-fragile. So you could, for instance, benefit from disorder, from risks. So risks will even make your organization better. So that is actually what the book is about. And until 2012, we had only 2 words for something not fragile. And those 2 words were robust and resilient. And in 2012, when Taleb wrote the particular book, Anti-Fragile, we had a third word in the world for something being not fragile. I would like to explain the difference between these 4 terms in the next slide. Something fragile, that actually deteriorates from the very beginning, and when it hits a real unexpected event, if the stress gets higher and higher, it will just collapse. A robust system or a robust organization will get up to a certain level for a very long time, but until the stress gets too high and it will also collapse. A resilient system will have a dip, but it will come back to the level it was designed for, but it will never get better than it was. And an anti-fragile system or an anti-fragile organization will only suffer from a little dip, but will after that will learn from the stress, will learn from the unexpected event, and will even become better after that. Let me give you two examples per term. A non-IT example like this. We all know this is fragile, but agile is actually also fragile. And why is agile fragile? Because in agile we talk about a potentially shippable increment, and when we do if we are not going to ship an increment to production, it is actually accumulating risk because we don't know for sure whether it works. So a potentially shippable increment that is not going to production is actually a risk. So that's why agile sec is actually a risk and is actually fragile. You need continuous integration, continuous delivery. You need DevOps to make agile more anti-fragile. Second term, robust. This beast with, in this case, Obama in it, that you could call such a car quite robust. And in IT, you might refer to the Linux beast as something quite robust. If we go to resilient, does anyone recognize this particular beast? Sorry? The phoenix. Yeah, it's the phoenix. So it rises from its own ashes, but it will never get better than it actually was. And we see actually the same with this is an IT example of resilience. This is the cockpit of an Airbus 380. It's actually a flying computer. If a vacuum system fails, there is a backup vacuum system. If both vacuum systems fail, there is a backup hydraulic system or electric system or whatever. So it keeps actually flying. And when we go to anti-fragile, this particular beast, anyone familiar with the name of this beast? Hydra. Yeah, Hydra from Greek mythology was actually anti-fragile before the word existed. Because if you chopped off a head of Hydra, it immediately grew back two heads. So with every attack, it became stronger. So that is actually something that you could call anti-fragile. If you go to IT, then we get actually in the world of chaos engineering. Here, the chaos monkey. Maybe you are familiar with that. I see some people nodding. And what the chaos monkey actually do is it's random software that attacks your system between 9 o'clock in the morning and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And if your system does not respond well, the engineers are able to fix it during office hours. And their incentive is that they will be less paged in the weekend, in the evening, at night. And they introduced a lot of extra monkeys after that. And the Chaos Gorilla was actually proof that the Chaos Monkey worked because Netflix, who built the Chaos Monkey, became immune to the Chaos Monkey. The Chaos Monkey was not able to deliver any failure that Amazon would suffer from. That Netflix would suffer from, and that's the reason that they eventually built the Chaos Gorilla. They all assembled it in the Simian army, a monkey army, and these days you can download it from the GitHub and release it in your own production environment if you dare to do that. Anti-fragility comes in layers because we already learned that one single aircraft is resilient. But the aircraft industry, the aviation industry, is actually anti-fragile because it learns from every failure, from every crash, like the Boeing 737 MAX, when it crashed once, when it crashed twice, all similar aircraft worldwide were grounded until we knew what happened to that particular two aircrafts. And after that, they started flying again. So the aviation industry is the anti-fragile layer above the individual aircrafts. So you could say, to get more anti-fragile, you could do chaos engineering, but that is only, as you can see here, the top of the iceberg. So the tip of the iceberg. So we would like to dig a little bit deeper. And it's 4:10 in the afternoon. Are you ready for some heavy math? Yes. Okay. Well, I have to disappoint you because it will not be that complex. It will be like this. But these are actually the graphs that are in the book of Taleb. And he talks about a variable that you can increase or decrease and whether it would generate pain or gain. And he's not talking about the simple stuff like this. I mean, this could, for instance, be the number of defects you have to handle. The more defects you have to handle, the more painful it gets. So that is linear. That is not what it is. What anti-fragility is about, because anti-fragility is about non-linearity. And I would like to share 3 aspects of asymmetry with you. And the first one is non-linearity. And the definition in the book is anything that has more upside than downside from random events and shocks is anti-fragile. It likes risks. It likes shocks. If that's the case, it is anti-fragile. It could be a system, could be an organization, and the reverse is fragile. And to judge whether something is fragile or anti-fragile, you just check whether it is accelerating towards harm or benefit, towards pain or gain. And then we get a simple graph like this. If you decrease this variable, it generates only a little bit of gain. But if you increase the variable, it rushes, it accelerates towards pain. The other way around, if I increase this variable, it generates only a little bit of pain. But if I decrease the variable, it accelerates towards gain. So what would this be? Would this be something fragile or something anti-fragile? Anyone? This is fragile, because whatever happens, if I increase the variable or I decrease the variable, in both cases, it rushes towards pain. I will show you some IT examples in a few slides. And the other one is, of course, this one, the right one. Because if I increase the variable or I decrease the variable, in both cases, it accelerates towards gain. But there is a tricky part, because I don't know where I am. I could be at the blue dot on the left side or the blue dot on the right side. But I could also be on the yellow dot on the left side or the right side. So if I don't know in what kind of situation I am, what my variable is, and whether I should increase it or decrease it, then it is quite tricky to do that in a fragile situation, because it could accelerate the situation towards. Here it still works. It's fragile. Whoa, that was a quick fix. Yeah. Yeah, so blue dot or yellow dot. And when I'm trying to find out where I am, that's quite tricky in a fragile situation, because if I increase or decrease in the wrong direction, it would be a problem for the fragile situation. It wouldn't matter at all for the anti-fragile situation. So when you are anti-fragile, you also need less information. When I'm fragile, I need more information, where I am and what I could do in a particular situation. So the right side, I need less information. Okay. And to remember that, the left one is the frown, the right one is the smile. The smile is the anti-fragile one. The left one is the fragile one. Now, let me get to an IT example. Suppose the variable is the number of deployments per month. And I don't deploy at all because I have some back office system that is already 15 years old and it runs smoothly, and I never have to change anything on it. So I don't deploy at all, zero, and I'm happy. But as soon as I need to do some deployments, I have to go to a lot of trouble and I will get unhappier and unhappier. But as you all know, the more you do it, the better you get at it. And in the end, I will get happy again because, well, I go towards continuous delivery, continuous deployment. And in the end, it will rush again towards gain. And from that point on, it doesn't matter anymore whether I would deploy once an hour or once a week or once a month. I can also go back. So it doesn't matter anymore in that situation. So I could say that continuous deployment is anti-fragile. So that's another thing that would help my organization, would help my system to get more anti-fragile. Another IT example is this one, is the number of tasks that I coordinate in a software project. Suppose I do not coordinate anything at all. It's chaos and it is painful. And as soon as I start to coordinate things that have dependency and all that, I will see that I get happier and happier. But as we all know, software projects always get too big and too large and too much dependencies and too much resources and too much cost and too much scale, etc. So in the end, it will grow too big and I will be unhappy again. So you could say that software projects are actually fragile. We'll come back to that later because there are also other aspects of projects that are fragile. So that's one thing. That is non-linearity. That's one aspect of symmetry. The next one is optionality. If you read this, I think that most of you think about something financial. So the word financial is not there, but if you read this particular sentence, you think, okay, this is about something financial. That could be the case, but there are much more non-financial options, and they are in most cases are they cheap or free to use, but in most cases we don't recognize them. So what are options? Well, options are, for instance, all the companies that are in the unicorn club, the club of organizations that are worth more than $1 billion on the US stock market. And this goes to 2017, 2018. And it gets more and more crowded on the right side. And yeah, you actually could say that the folks that started these companies, they all had the option to start the company and to become successful. And all these unicorns eventually became successful. So they had the option to start a company. They did, and they become successful. Maybe they could have done it. They could have stopped the organization, or not even started, but they had the option. What we also see is that the time to unicorn valuation also gets shorter and shorter. So, for instance, who is familiar with Magic Leap? Oh, a few, 3, 4 hands, yeah. And Magic Leap, and as far as I know, it's still the organization that has the shortest unicorn valuation ever. Some people are nodding. But what they actually do is also, it's also an option, an experiment that they are actually doing. This was actually the video that Magic Leap initially used to show what they were planning to realize. I'll let you show the video. There's no sound, but that's for a reason. And these children, These children are actually looking at the whale coming from the water and splashing back, and they are not wearing any goggles. They are wearing it with their own. They are looking at it with their own eyes, and Magic Leap still pretends that they will be able to realize this in the end, because they are talking about digital light, and all what we do right now, and the reason that you see me is that we are dealing with analog light, and what Magic Leap actually says, we are in the end we will be able to work with digital light and to project actually this kind of images directly in your eye, and we don't need goggles anymore by then. And so far, they have consumed about $4.5 billion, and they did not realize what they showed here. But they are still experimenting because they think they will in the end. So experimenting is important, and I think we all know that. How many of you read the Phoenix project? Yeah, only a few hands. I think I would recommend anybody to read the Phoenix project, because it's actually a novel about introducing DevOps in an organization. And when you start reading it, I think most people think this is about my organization. It could be about my organization. It's actually it's actually based on the real world examples that we see when we are deploying DevOps in an organization. And the third way of the Phoenix project, the third way is actually continual experimentation and learning. And when we do that, that is okay when you are anti-fragile, because then every outlier is positive. So I could experiment, because every experiment, or let's say most experiments, will generate a positive change in value, at least not a negative change in value. And when I'm fragile, well, then it's quite dangerous to do experiments, but because in most cases, it will generate a negative change in value. So what I would like to do, because most organizations are still fragile. So what I would like to do in such cases is that I should get rid of the downside, the lower part of the negative change in value. And I could do that by something that was also introduced by Taleb, and that is the via negativa. Because normally we add a lot of measures to make things work. And what Taleb actually says about via negativa is that you should get rid of things. So the technical debt is actually the most important one. And Gene Kim, he coined my favorite definition of technical debt, and that is what you feel the next time you want to make a change. That is actually what technical debt actually is. And technical debt is one of the biggest parts of that red section that you see in this particular graph. So how do we get rid of technical debt? I would like to introduce the 4-color backlog with you. And maybe you are in the first 3 columns, which actually says that you are deploying features, the green ones, or you are resolving defects. But if you only do that, if you only listen to your customer, because your customer, he or she wants features and he wants defects to be resolved, if you only do that, you will end up in 3 or maybe even a higher number of defects. So what you also have to do is to bring reducing technical debt in the mix, and also do something about risks. That's the orange part. So maybe you are in columns 4 till 7, so you're already mixing also blue and orange. And in the columns 8 till 11, then you finally see that the situation gets more stable again, because the number of defects go down. And number 12, this could be a year, for instance, but this could also take you 2 years or 3 years, maybe. The last one, number 12, is actually a stable situation where you can deploy a lot of features for your customer, but you also have to invest in reducing technical debt, and you have to invest in risk management, and also, of course, resolve the defects that come with the features that you are deploying. A possible way to do this is to work with that 4-column backlog is to use a Kanban board with different layers. So this is actually a Kanban with 3 layers. So, but you could make one with 4 layers, and it should contain all the colors that we saw on the previous slide. So, are we doing enough blue initiatives? Are we doing enough orange initiatives? And of course, the feature requests and the defects, they come without any asking. The customer will bring them by him or herself. But we as IT, we will have to make sure that there's enough blue and orange in the mix. It also depends on your product owner, of course, that your product owner is also someone with a long-term vision. Because if a product owner only looks for to the coming months, well, then he or she will not allow any blue or orange in the mix. It doesn't matter, because after those 2 or 3 months, maybe that product owner is already doing something else. So you have to you want a product owner with a long-term vision. That was the second aspect. That was optionality, and the last one is actually transferring fragility. And the definition from the book is, if one party has the downside and another party has the upside, fragility is being transferred from one party to the other. And the reverse of that is what I call is skin in the game, which means that a person has something to lose in a given situation. And this concept is already very old. It was actually the first time it was carved in stone in about 3,700 years ago by King Hammurabi in Mesopotamia. And he had carved 282 laws in stone, and especially Code 229 is relevant in this case, because they had a lot of houses that were not built steady enough. And the code is actually, if a builder builds a house and the house collapses and causes the death of the owner of the house, the builder shall be put to death. That was Code 229. So from that point onwards, you could see that houses were built a lot more stable than before. Yeah. And Taleb wrote a book about it, Skin in the Game, especially on this particular subject. Let me share some IT examples with you, which are related to the Skin in the Game concept. And first of all is, of course, the skin in the game is missing in silos, which means that dev has no, if dev and ops are in different silos, then dev has no skin in the ops game, and ops has no skin in the dev game. They don't care about what's happening on the other side of, or what's happening in the other silo. So you could say that silos are fragilizers. So this is actually the whole DevOps concept. That's why DevOps works so well, because it is actually skin in the game. I make one team that has skin in each other's game. I don't build crappy software because I will be maintaining it tomorrow myself. So I will make sure it works all right. The second one, where skin in the game is missing, is projects. And in projects, in most cases, I compare the benefits of the project with the initial costs of the project. What I don't take into account in most cases are the operational costs, because the project manager has no skin in the operational game. So you could also say that projects are fragilizers. They don't look any further than the end date of the project. They have no skin in the operational game. And the last one, where it is missing, is with command and control management. If you have an organization with command and control management, then you could say that, let me first check this. What you could say is that information is going up in the organization and decisions are going down in the organization. And what David Marquet actually says, he wrote the book Turn the Ship Around, actually about decentralizing decision making. And he says, push authority to the information level instead of pushing information to the authority level. In other words, have people make decisions on the level where the information is, which actually says decentralized decision making. A lot of decisions can be made on a lower level. And of course, there are some prerequisites. People should be technically competent, and they should have organizational clarity, and they should understand priorities. But in most cases, maybe 60, 70, and maybe even more % of all the decisions in a company can be made on a lower level than they are made now. And that is also something that makes an organization less fragile, because decisions can be made on the level where also the information is. And you will also become faster because of that, because the command and control situation where information goes up and decision goes down, that takes too long. And Turn the Ship Around is actually about such a situation, but on board of a nuclear submarine. And then on a nuclear submarine, they don't have time. They are in a high stress environment, so they have to take decisions very fast. So last one, command and control is also fragilizing. The whole story, the whole skin in the game story, you can boil it down to one image, and that is this one. Are we or are we not in the same team? Yeah, that's actually what it is about. Yeah. So to get more anti-fragile, you could say, okay, that's chaos engineering. We already knew that. Reducing technical debt, continuous deployment, decentralized decision making. From project to project. I will touch that later when I talked about project management. An alternative for project management would be product management. And of course, last but not least, also DevOps. So with DevOps, with doing continuous deployment, we actually are already moving towards a more anti-fragile organization and a more anti-fragile system. You could also compare anti-fragility a little bit with inoculation, like a vaccination. And this baby clearly sees its first needle because it's still looking happy at the needle, not knowing what is coming next. And that's right, because there is a biological version of anti-fragility, and that's hormesis, which actually means that if you inject a little bit of an agent in a body, then that body will strengthen. And if you inject a large amount of an agent, it might weaken or even kill you. So that's the reason that a vaccine is actually a little bit of something that stimulates the immune system, and to make sure that you get stronger. So hormesis is actually the biological version of antifragility. Let me give you some other examples of how you could get more antifragile. And that is, for instance, canary releases. And canary releases, it's actually a low doses of uses that you allow in your system. So that's also antifragile. Low doses, just like the hormesis that we just saw on the previous slide, low doses helps to check whether the system can handle it or not. Same with A/B testing. Little changes, will it be A, will it be B? That's actually also contributing to antifragility. Same with microservices. With microservices, you could also reduce big decisions into smaller, frequent decisions. And in most cases, they should all be upside. And in those particular cases that a microservice doesn't turn out to be upside, it is downside, you might rewrite it. But it's only a small decision. It's the microservices. So it also helps you to get more antifragile. And the previous slides actually reveal a deep truth about software, and that is that software has diseconomies of scale. If you compare to milk, milk is the cheapest in big cartons, but software is the cheapest in lots of small cartons. That's actually something you realize after seeing the previous slides. So small cartons of software eventually also reduce the risk. And auto scaling, it's actually is programmed to respond to change. So it's also something that contributes to antifragility. And another one question for you: what do you think would be more antifragile? Focusing on a long mean time between failure, or focusing on a short mean time to repair? What is antifragile? Sorry? MTTR? Yeah, MTTR. That's right. John Allspaw, the guru in this area, said that antifragile systems assume that failure will happen, and it will happen. And he says there's only two cases where you should focus on the mean time between failure, and that is for space hardware, because as soon as you launched a certain device, you cannot send easily engineers. And if you are dealing with embedded medical devices in your chest, you also want it to have a long mean time between failure. In all other cases, focus on the MTTR. So that's also contributing to antifragility. So then we could say, okay, then we have on the right side the microservices, the A/B testing, auto-scaling, focus on MTTR and the canary releases. So it begins to fill up, but we are missing one last big thing. When we talked about the via negativa, which meant that we had to get rid of something, I only talked about technical debt, but there is also something like organizational debt. And that's, for instance, also in Spotify engineering culture, the two videos of 50 minutes you are maybe familiar with about how Spotify designed their engineering culture. And what they actually say what organizational debt is actually handoffs between teams, politics, fear, ego, all that kind of stuff. And what we in most cases see is that the organizational design of the organization is not streamlined, not aligned with the operational design of the organization. So in the bottom, we have the value stream. In the top, we have the hierarchy, and it is not aligned. So in the top, we have the silos that we will suffer from in the bottom part of it. So this is actually organizational debt. And we are actually talking about Conway's law. And Conway's law is that actually says that the system that you build are actually a copy of the communication structure in your organization. And Conway's law is unbreakable. It was coined in 1967, and it is still unbreakable. But you can leverage Conway's law, and what you could do is that you make your organization more more smooth, to make sure that more simple, so to say, and in that case you would be able to design better software. Have to switch here with one thing, and that is this one. Yep. Yeah, and what we are actually saying is that we are ending Taylor's area. Taylor published his 4 principles of scientific management in 1911. That's more than 100 years ago. But some of these principles, you still find them in your current organization. That's incredible. It's more than 100 years ago. This was designed for assembly line work, not for software work. It doesn't fit with software work. So we have to get rid of all the things that Taylor designed in 1911. If you would like a book that actually helps you to check whether what kind of things you should adjust in your organization, I can highly recommend Project to Product from Mick Kirsten. There are a lot of explosive quotes in the book. And for instance, the last one is replace project-oriented management, cost center budgeting, and organizational charge. Replace all those in your organization. Well, that would be explosive if you would suggest that to a board of directors in an organization. And what he actually says is the first one: the majority of the world's organizations is not able to make that digital transformation. It's not going to work in their current situation. So the book is full of information on how to change your organization in a version that will be able to make that digital transformation. So on the bottom of this overview slide, I add this last thing, and that is reducing organizational debt. That is maybe one of the most important things. And that brings me to my last slide. That in most organizations, the bottleneck is at the top of the bottle. That was my presentation. Any questions? I'm just within time, right? Yeah. Check. 2 minutes. Okay. So right. There we have room for questions.
I'll be quick. So I really like your example with Boeing and basically show how anti-failure or how much failure prone can a single plane be, but how anti-failure the basically entire air industry can be. We manage as well production services or production, products. Is there, in terms of quantification, is there a way to create an index so we, based on past events, so we can at least grade ourselves how much failure or anti-failure are we?
That question has been asked to me before, and I am working on that. I'm actually I have designed a site with actually the frequently asked questions about anti-fragility. But we don't have. I don't have a way of measuring it yet. But we are working on that, because that's an organization wants to know. Okay, what's my situation right now, and what can I do to make it better? So exactly the answer to your question. Yeah, and I don't have it yet. No,
that's all good. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? One more. Nope. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Hello. Okay, so related to the anti-fragility, how that really incorporates into other type of companies, or it's mostly focused on IT, because a lot of the presentation, a lot of the show off was related to IT development and ops, but how are that correlated with like everything else?
The rest of the organization.
Yes, correct, because there's the business involved, which is different than just the development process.
Yeah. The point is that Taleb, in his book, he never mentioned IT, because his books are about everything but IT. So you could for instance read the books of Taleb, but then you will also see that decentralization of decision making is a very important one. For instance, he mentions the example of city states in the organization, like Singapore. Why is Singapore functioning so good? Because it's a city state. So it's also like a skin in the game, because the government is also the city. So that is one of the examples that he mentions in the book, and a lot of actually all the other examples are all non-IT.
But so for me to be more specific, but then you put like some examples on how we can improve it, so you can move out of that. But a lot of all the examples, or most of the examples, are related to improvement on the IT and the systems that we are working on.
Yeah.
And then later you said that technically the most problematic problem is actually the communication, the business, and the decision making.
Yeah.
But there is no like solutions exactly specifically for that point, right? So there are solutions for the IT part.
Mm-hmm.
So that connection, do you have anything that correlates directly with that, like the part of the iceberg, which would be improving on the communication, mostly focused on that?
Yeah, but that would also be the organizational depth for the rest of the organization. So like value streams, and of course the fact that every organization more or less becomes an IT company. So value streams, organizational depth, that is not only IT but also affects the rest of the organization. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So we are run out of time. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone. From 5, we're going to have the second keynote for today, and it'll be English language is on this room, the hall A. So if you want to listen in Japanese, you stay here. If you want to listen in English, please go to the hall A. It's going to be starting from 5 p.m. Thank you very much.